During the civil rights struggle, the dramatic pictures on television had a profound impact on shaping public policy. The leaders of the civil rights movement understood that television could be their unwitting ally, and they courted the camera.
All of us had this sense that, newspaper coverage is one thing, but if you can get pictures taken of this activity, it's something else because it's more immediate, it's more real, it resonates more with people. And so my job was to invite this coverage. Cameras, in a way, were a kind of insurance against violence. But if violence did occur, you wanted the cameras to be there to take those pictures.
Why don't you get out in front of the camera and go on?
It's not a matter of being in front of the camera. It's a matter of facing your sheriff and facing your judge. We're willing to be beaten for democracy. And you misuse democracy in the street. You beat people bloody in order that they will not have the privilege to vote.
Television obviously liked this activity.
Hide your blows.
The moral balance between the good and the evil was so clear.
I was shocked the first time I went south and saw these things. Absolutely shocked. And then what happened, I think, my shock, in effect, that same sense of shock, was transmitted all over America when they saw these pictures.
The South saw the TV camera as a hostile intruder.
Somebody came up behind me and hit me with an axe handle. And some local guy walked up to me and he said, "You need a doctor?" And I was sort of shaking my head and saying, "Yeah, I think so. I think I'm bleeding." Then he thrust his face right up into mine and said, "Well, we don't have doctors for people like you."
He said, "You're from NBC News?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "You know what we call NBC News down here?" I said, "No." He said, "The Nigger Broadcasting Company."
If you can't fly, run. If you can't run, walk. Let's freedom ring.
Television allowed a Baptist preacher, Dr. Martin Luther King, to speak to an entire nation. His message, nonviolence.
I am convinced that the most potent weapon available to oppressed people as they struggle for freedom and justice is the weapon of nonviolence.
I always felt that one of the ironies of King and his nonviolent movement was that he needed violence. He needed it. And if he went into a town and nothing happened, nothing would get on television.
Let's have two in this area right here where you pick.
In 1962, Martin Luther King led several protest marches in Albany, Georgia. But police chief Laurie Pritchett ordered his men not to react with violence when the cameras were rolling. There were no horrifying images. The march failed.
I'm under orders to keep walking.
King moved the protest to Birmingham, Alabama, where he would be met by Bull Connor, who fit the image of a Southern sheriff.
Bring that line, nigger, over here. Let's go.
They chose Birmingham because it was perhaps the most segregated big city in the South at the time. But more important, it had Bull Connor. And they know how Bull Connor would react. And Bull Connor reacted as though we were following a script.
If this had never been on the network news, if it had never been anything but newspaper stories, I think, and an occasional photograph, it wouldn't have done. It was television. It was seeing people treated in that way. It was seeing the policemen beat people. It was seeing people knocked down. It was seeing the dogs charge and bite people. It was seeing the hoses. It was seeing it and knowing that it had happened just the day before.
The White House sensed a shift in public opinion. The brutality must end.
The events in Birmingham have so increased the cries for equality that no city or state or legislative body can prudently choose to ignore them.
Kennedy then introduced the first legislation ever to outlaw segregation. He was now ready to challenge the Southern politicians who were determined to block any civil rights bill.
All indications were that the Congress would block it, turn it down, filibuster it. The question was timing. When could it be put forward with maximum impact so that it was not an empty political gesture, but have a chance? It was the events in Birmingham and elsewhere in the South and the televised publication into the homes of ordinary American people that made that timing just right for June 1963.
Next week, I shall ask the Congress of the United States to act, to make a commitment it has not fully made in this century to the proposition that race has no place in American life or law.